Welcome to another episode of Fordify Live. This week's guest is Michelle Tillis Lederman, and we're going to be covering a topic that is important for every organization, large and small, franchise brand to billion-dollar company, and that is the topic of employee engagement, employee retention. How do you attract and retain top talent? And I was thinking about, okay, let's bring Michelle on because you and I have worked together. We're in masterminds together, and I thought, what better expert? Because you're always someone, even though we've worked together and we've been clients of each other, you know, we call each other on our crap, right? And so I thought no one better to bring on for this particular topic than you. So anyway, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm happy to be here. Always happy to see your smiling face, Ford.
Well, wonderful. We are live right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So those of you watching, go ahead and put your comments in. If you have any questions for us, we'll be sure to answer them as best we can during the show. So how do you define the problem? I mean, the brands that you work with, because you run two different companies. You've got your successful speaking business and training business, and then you've got Executive Essentials, which is a whole other company that you go in with your facilitated learners. So what is it that you see around this topic? I mean, the common sense thing is people are challenged, but what are the underlying currents and challenges that you see?
Well, we've all heard that phrase, quiet quitting.
Yeah.
And that's the idea that
which I think is just...
you know what? I'm with you. I actually wrote a blog post on it that I want to shift the language from quiet quitting to collaborative quitting. I'm okay with people leaving the organization. I know we're talking about retention, but here's the thing. We want to retain the people who want to be there. And we don't want the people who don't want to be there just sitting there and taking up space and not being productive and not being engaged, because that's a drain on the organization. You can actually convert an employee into a future client or referral partner if you collaboratively exit them. So yes, retention, and we can talk about how to make your people want to stay. But for those that don't want to stay, let's get them out.
Well, I agree with that. It's hire slow and fire fast. And, I'm happy to free people up for new opportunities. I do know well enough that some of the challenges I've had the turnover in my organizations was leadership. It was setting clear visions and training to standard and giving people a culture that they could be happy. But assuming that companies are doing those types of things, for me, the quiet quitting it's like PETA's, pain in the ass, right? So 20% of your employees produce 80% of your results, just like your clients. And I believe at some point, a business should sit back and look at their employees and decide, do they have the right people? What do you think about that? And again, we come at this from totally different perspectives, which is why I wanted you, because you're the compassionate, empathetic, connector, and I'm the other one, so.
Yeah, but let's not, I'm not a softie, right? As I started this conversation with saying, good riddance. People don't quit organizations, they quit people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at a bare minimum, I know why I work here. I know what we're trying to do. I mean, that's a bare minimum. I don't accept a job unless I understand my purpose within that job. I mean, people want to understand the impact of their work.
Right.
That's a leader's job to make sure they understand they have an impact. If I show up and I don't feel like I'm having any impact, I don't get any fulfillment. All I get is a paycheck, and that paycheck's never going to be big enough.
Right.
Right. The paycheck's not going to keep me satisfied. What keeps me satisfied are the relationships I build within that organization and the impact that I feel in my work and the recognition and appreciation for that work. Those are the things that we need to do if we want to build loyalty and retain people and engage them. But to your point, do I think we should, just look at our people all the time and be like, bye-bye, bye-bye, bing, bing,
Well, I wasn't quite, that bad, but I get it.
I was waiting for the sound effects there. No, I actually think we should look at our people and understand and have a coaching conversation around, what do you enjoy about your day? Where do you like spending your time? Where do you want to see spending your time? I'm working with a CEO of a major nonprofit right now, and she wants to revamp her entire executive team. And I see this tentativeness with somebody who's been there for 16 years. And she's like, I don't know what she's working on. And I said, well, and she goes, I don't want to make it feel like I'm looking over her shoulder or micromanaging. And I said, well, just have a coaching conversation about, what is she enjoying spending her time on? Where does she want to reallocate her time? And it's not about a looking over her shoulder, but it's about let's use the value that you bring to the organization, the depth of knowledge, the depth of experience, but you're also your passion. You wouldn't be here for 16 years if you didn't have passion for it. And it completely changed her approach and her perspective on that conversation. And I'm actually coaching with her later today, so we'll see how that conversation went. But that's the conversation I want to have with people. And you might discover, you know what, this isn't a fit anymore. But it's with them. That's the collaborative quitting, or the collaborative, revamping of your job, versus, I'm not getting a lot out of you. Well, why aren't you getting a lot out of me? That's on you too. Right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really does start with the culture. I know that when Prime Concepts, when we started to improve things, it really came down to that, because I had so many clients that were in leadership, and unfortunately, as an expert in the topic, that clients and customers don't understand what leadership is. They don't know if it's leadership or team building or management or culture or communication or change. There's a lot of different topics, and then within each of those topics, there's all these different challenges. But what I hear you saying then is really what an organization needs to do is step back and take personal accountability for their culture first, and look at what type of communications are they having, and are they really collaborating with their teams. Today is one of our lunch and learn days. We're going to have a lunch and learn, and then we're going to go to, I think it's called Smash House, where my team picked it, but they want to go there at 3:00. Yeah, so at 3:00, there'll probably be some TikTok videos or something later, but they want to go and bust a bunch of stuff up. So that's what they chose. So I don't know what that says about me, but we'll let that go, because that's what they wanted. So you guys can put some notes in the comments. But so what?
Oh my God, I still want to go there. I want to do that. That sounds like so much fun.
it should be a lot of fun. So what can you tell a leader if you own a business? What tangible takeaways could you give them? Like, so they know this, they know they need to communicate, they know they need to collaborate, but where does it start? Do they need to learn something? Do they need to read something? Is there a template or a process? 3 steps? Like, what can they do to actually do this?
There's tons of things you can do. And one of the things that is coming to the front of my mind is a values culture brand activity that I do with some of my organizations. When I get the leadership in the room, we start with values. Every organization has a value system, and everyone has their mission, vision, values, right? But I actually think you need to start with the values, because the values drive our behavior, and they drive our culture, and the culture drives your brand. And so we need to understand where we're starting from and where we want to go. And a lot of people don't understand what culture means. And if I ask people to write a definition of the word culture, I'll get a lot of different definitions. But I find it very simply is culture is the way in which we get our work done together. Right. So how do we decide that we want to work? What are our rules of a road, or rules of engagement, so to speak? And that's the exercise I put organizations through. Next Tuesday, I'm doing it with an operations team. Their executive committee already went through it, and they said, no, we don't want to finish this without them, which I loved. Because they started this process where, we put all our values up, and we started to see where there was consensus on certain values. And then people kind of gravitated towards the value that they really wanted to drive within the organization, and create a definition of that value, because we all define things. What if I asked you to fairness or respect? We define those things differently. And then coming up with literally, what does this look like in an organization? One company had radical honesty or radical transparency or something like that was one of their values. And I'll never forget, one of the rules of the road was, you'll tell me if I have spinach in my teeth. And it wasn't meant to be that minute, but it was meant to say, hey, give me the information I need to be at my best. Yeah. And that's what created that culture of feedback there.
That makes so much sense. We went through the exercise a few years ago. We hired a consultant. They came in, and, we did our mission, our vision, and value. And for me, as a marketing strategic guy, I understand strategy. I understand the difference between mindset, strategy, and tactics. So it was well in alignment, but I've spent most of my career in the lane of how do you connect the value of someone's product or service to their ideal client. That's the lane that I spend most of my time in, business growth. But a business can't grow without people, and people can't grow without having an effective culture. So that culture is one of those words that's kind of been overused right now. because you can't swing a dead cat without hitting 10 leadership experts now with, anybody with a webcam and I'm so unpolitically correct on this. So let me just, but there's so many, anybody with a webcam and a microphone calls themselves an expert now. So you got to be so careful on how that is. That's why I like to bring guests in that are specialized like you. So we did our mission, vision, and values, and I know you guys won't be able to see this, but this is a mouse pad that we have, and on it, let's see if I can get in. So there's our vision, and I'll just hold it up there for the screen, and then we have our mission. Sorry about the dirty mouse pad, I didn't get a new one. And then we have our values. So we did it on a mouse pad, and we have posters because we wanted it to be front and center. But one of the things that we did is we also came up with working standards. And so our working standards were questions that the team should ask. Is there a clear understanding of what success looks like? Is there clarity? Now with all my fancy technology, I could have made a slide and it could have been really cool, but don't worry about that, everybody. Don't get seduced by technology. The point is, we did our mission, vision, values, and that's our North Star, but we're finding that we have to come back to them. We find that some people aren't necessarily acting out of integrity. If we have a problem between two employees, I've tried to say, okay, guys, let's figure out. I don't see whiny person on the I don't quite say it like that, but
So here's what I heard. One, I love it. And I love that it's on a mouse pad because it does keep it connected, but it also becomes background.
Yeah.
And as you said, we have our mission, vision, values. And the next word I heard was but.
Yes.
And so anytime you use but, you're dismissing everything before it.
Yep.
So when you talk about, this connection of values to our clients and our customers and what we do, here's one of the things that came to my mind, which is we don't hire an organization for their mission or their vision.
Right. People don't.
Right?
Yeah.
We might hire them for their values, but the only reason we know those values is because of the relationship we have with them. And so at the end of the day, it is not price and it is not product. It is people that close the deal.
Yes.
And the relationship you have with your people and the relationship your people have with their customer and their client, that's what makes the difference. Like I know that this one dentist office, I just love the whole team there versus another doctor's office that I will never go to the doctor because of the team there.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So when you think about what matters in the organization, that's why I start with values, because the values are how we treat each other. And you had a long list of values on that mouse pad, and they're wonderful values. And there's an exhaust, like
I'm gonna go burn it.
Well, there's an infinite list of great values that we can have, but maybe we need to simplify of like, what are the 3 to 5 values that drive our behavior in everything that we do?
All right. So that's a takeaway. I want to make sure everybody listening. So if you've got a poster like me where someone said you need to have 10 values on it. So ours were integrity, creativity, honesty, trust, respect, kindness. They want them coachable. They want to collaborate, contribution, excellence, and accountability. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back next time because this one's really dirty. I need to throw it in the trash. We're going to go, it's not the values, everybody, just the mouse pad. So I'm going to go back and so what you recommend is just, it has to be understandable and they have to be able to articulate it, right? So I think 3 to 5 maybe would be probably best.
Yeah. And if I listen to some of those values, when you define the value, you can combine them, right?
Right.
And it's, I heard was respect one of the ones I heard?
Yeah, there's integrity, creativity, honesty, trust, respect, and kindness are in the first column. There sounds a lot of the same things to me. So,
what is the overarching value there, right? Because kindness, respect, hold it up again. Let me see them. I'm a visual person.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and I'll hold it up. You'll be able to see it. Whoops, wrong camera. So I'll just hold it up to this camera because it'll be easier to see on this one. So that's the vision. The vision was, I'll tell you that later, but there's the values. And as you look at that list, I want everybody to understand the outcome of what we want to do, because one of the things that I'm known for is taking complicated subjects and making them easier to understand, right? So that's the whole point of of everything, that we do here is that. And for me, it really came down to three different things as far as how I have my team articulate it. If they say, what do we do? Everybody on my team should be able to articulate, we help people find, attract, and keep their customers. Bottom line. And we can say clients or buyers, but let's keep it really simple. If you called into my office and you said, hey, what does Prime Concepts do? We help you find, attract, and keep your customers. And then we can extend it through innovative, creative solutions, blah, blah, blah. And if they ask me, what's the mission of our company? What's the, you have your vision. I would say vision. What's our vision?
Your reason for being.
Yeah. I want three things: happy clients, happy bank account, and happy team. And so I want it easy for the team to identify what's the purpose, like why. I mean, you can write all these fancy things down, but I want them to be able to articulate it. And so, for example, if we have a project that's out of control, well, then we don't have a good customer experience. If we have a project out of control, then we have team members that are frustrated because they're getting interrupted and they're overworked and stressed. And if we have too much time and things aren't managed properly, well, then we waste money. So the three of our pie chart would be team, culture, and client, and so that they can articulate it. So we started with the coach who said, "Oh, you need this statement. It needs to be one sentence. Like, it's not a paragraph; it's one sentence." But I wanted to dumb it down even more.
Yeah, because
remember, this is straight talk. This is me and you on my show. You can say whatever you want. Don't sugarcoat this stuff. Just give it to me.
All right. So I heard happy team, happy customer, happy bank account. Now, the happy bank account, you then talked about it in a different way than it sounded the first.
Oh, okay. Well, it just means we need to be profitable in what we're doing. We can't just overdo what we do for the client and waste money.
You want to be valued for the work that you provide to your customers, right? And so, on a t-shirt, nobody wants to say, hey, happy bank account means I'm being overcharged, right?
Right. No, we're talking yeah. Sorry, everybody. Well, that's just, so no, we're talking internally with our team, the metrics that we're using to measure success.
But you're sharing this publicly, right? And so
no, not that. Well, I don't share it. Like, if you went to primeconcepts.com, you'll see the actual.
We're on LinkedIn Live. You're sharing it publicly.
I don't mind. I don't care. They can, fine. But so the vision actually says a leading creative agency built upon the pillars of synergistic culture, exceeding client expectations, and generating consistent profits. That's on our website. So I want people to know that we want to be profitable, but it's about value.
There's nothing wrong with being profitable. Here's the thing. When we talk about mission, vision, values, it becomes this blah, blah,
yeah,
right?
It's just, yeah.
Mission,
exactly.
vision, values. And then people are like, well, what's the difference between a mission and vision? And so that's why you can have here's why we exist, right? And why we exist is to help our customers. That first sentence you gave me, right? Happy customers, retain.
So it's bank account, team, and client.
That's your reason for being.
Right.
Right. That can be on your website. How you accomplish that, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. How do you actually, how does it show up?
How does it show up in the way in which we do our work? Right. I don't care what vision versus mission versus, but the values drive our behavior. Our behavior drives our impact and our retention and our engagement. And that's where I'm coming from. If you want to retain your top talent, it's going to be based on the relationship you have with that talent and them feeling appreciated, them feeling valued, them feeling like they have impact, them feeling like they have a say, and them caring about you and feeling like you care about them as humans. I always say there's only two things you really need to do as a leader. Show your people you care about them as people, and show your people you care about the things they care about.
That makes so much sense. It really does. What would you say to someone watching how do they know? Like, I think there's a delusion between what leadership thinks the culture is and what the team thinks the culture is, right? What do you do with an organization to see alignment or to uncover what's really going on? Because for me, years ago, I had turnover. I had a company with 140 employees, and we had production, and we had, manufacturing, and we did all these different, departments. And, we had a fair bit of turnover, but it wasn't that bad. And I had a really good operations manager and good leaders. And then I had a smaller company where I had an agency of only 35 people, and I had a lot of turnover. And I was talking to one of my mastermind buddies, and he said, well, who's always at the scene of the crime, Ford? What's the one common denominator? And I was like, okay, thanks. Thanks. I appreciate that. It was me, right? And because I kept wanting to bring people in for team building and accountability because I did. And they were like, it's not that. It's your leadership style. It's your communication style. You're not giving anybody training. You're not giving them the time. You're missing meetings, and the list goes on. And so now I'm 61. I've been practicing, and I'm going to continue to practice. And one of the great things about having guests on a show like Fordify Live is I get to learn from you, right? So yes, I'm doing this for the viewers and listeners and readers, but I'm also wanting to learn and to grow because if you're watching this and you pick up one or two nuances, I mean, what I really think about Michelle is she's really an activator, right? She really changes things and gets you to think differently. So I just want to tell you, thank you for being on the show. But what does someone do? What does an organization do when the leadership thinks it's the team and the team thinks it's the leadership?
So I love, well, thank you for saying that I'm an activator. That, that made my day. I love that you're willing to look in the mirror. And, as a leader, we need to be checking that pulse. And how do we do that? There's lots of engagement surveys that we can do. Right. But when we have open lines of communication, as a leader, you're modeling the way, right? As a leader, you are flexing your style. So this is one thing that I think a lot of leaders struggle with. You're Ford. I know how you communicate. I know your energy. It's why I've worked with your company many times. At the same time, right? Most of my interactions are not with you.
I get it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And for your people to be successful, right? Sometimes you'll swoop on in. If you want them to be able to take the reins and run with it and be a leader in their role, you need to flex to them. You need to adapt to their way of doing something. And that's really hard for leaders because you got to the top because you know how it's done.
Right.
And I can do it better and I can do it faster. And I know this is my way. And there's a concept I'm going to share with you and you're going to put all your bells and whistles.
I'm ready. I'm listening.
Okay. Acceptable differences. So this is the concept that all leaders need to take with them today, and take them home too. It works at home. Acceptable differences. What are the differences from the way in which I would do something that are acceptable? And what are the ones that has to be my way or the highway? And if you can give clarity to your team on here's where I can't deviate from the Ford way, and here's why.
All right, so here's the list. Here's the list of what they can do, and here's the list of what I can. No, I'm just kidding.
And here's where I want you to have freedom. Here's where I want to take initiative. Here's where I want you to give me direction. And
I've done more of it. I don't think I've done it I don't want to interrupt you too much. I've done it more. And for everybody watching, this is just a personal consultation between me and Michelle. This has nothing to do with our viewers and listeners. This is just me getting help here. But, it really comes down to that where I have what the first place I started was, whether I knew it intuitively or not, was I just showed them that it was okay to fail. Because as marketers, the only way you know if anything works is you test. You test, you track, you modify, repeat. So if I apply that same methodology to leadership, when I told Alex, our producer for Fordify, I said, I want you to do some YouTube shorts. And he goes, well, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, neither do I at this point. Just put some up. And, they got 4 views, 5 views, but he was learning. He was getting more confident and he did it. So I have definitely transitioned from everything has to be done exactly the way I want it to here's the outcome. Here's the direction and path that I would take. I'm willing to let you have some leeway within a certain boundary. The boundaries are pretty wide. And if they can hit the target without going through all the steps, that's great. But the target to me and the outcome is more important than the process. I want someone to be effective, not efficient. I'd rather have
So it's a
them.
results only approach, right? Which I
Yeah.
love.
And I don't know if that's right or not. I'm just saying I'm okay with them failing as long as they learn the lesson.
There's not right or wrong. There's best, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not the same for every organization. But I want to bring this full circle. You said I wanted to be clear that it's okay to fail. So what I just heard is that's a value, right? And you're modeling the way. And so if we go back to that activity that organizations can do, sometimes we write all these values, but that was not on your list. On your list was not either it's okay to fail or take risks or take initiative. I didn't see that concept on your list of values. So now we have this idea and we can say, but you're nodding
Not
your
on
head.
there.
It's not on there, but clearly it's important to you.
Yeah.
That's something that you want to be part of the culture. And so we define what that looks like, and then we have actions. And so, maybe what you have as a rule of the road is that when somebody fails, right, they get to share it. And we do what are those things the doctors do? The postmortem.
Well, we actually do that. So we want to do we call it a debrief. If we have a fumble, the first thing we want to do is take responsibility for the fumble, acknowledge it, let the client know, okay, we messed up or whatever we did. So and I got this from Shep Hyken. It was 5 steps. I don't think I'll remember them off the top of my head, but I'll give you the best I can. But it was basically accept responsibility was number 1. Acknowledge it, take action, do course correction, and then I can't remember the 5th one. But it was a very I have a 3x5 card in my drawer I can pull out. But
it doesn't sound that different to my it's on this shoulder. I have a whole chapter on the mindset of trust, because connectors trust. There it is.
Yeah.
And I talk about 5 steps to restoring broken trust.
It's kind of messed up. It got ruined. But the 5 steps were acknowledge, apologize, fix it or discuss it. Do we have the right attitude, right? That's a real big one, right? Especially nowadays with the customer journey. And then take action quickly. So acknowledge, apologize, fix it, or at least say, I don't have the answer, but I'll get it. Make sure you maintain a positive attitude because there's somebody who's stressed. And then, actually follow through and carry the ball. Don't just mail and bail and say, well, I emailed them, I haven't heard back, right?
So let me add one to that list.
I would love
consistency.
to.
Right.
Wait, I don't know. Hey, Google, what does consistency mean? Whoops, it's probably going to tell me.
If we've made that failure, if we've broken some trust, if we've had a rift, yes, it is acknowledge, own it, share that you understand, the specifics around what I did and the impact of that action. That's all of that beginning part. State the actions that you're willing to commit to. Invite input on anything else that they might want you to add, but don't start with, what can I do to make it better?
Right. That just bothers me when people say that. It's like, don't read a script.
What can I do to make it better is putting the onus on them to fix the problem. Like that's one of the worst things you can do. But you can invite them after you said, here's what I'm planning to do.
Right.
Is there anything else you would like to see? You can do that. But then consistency, because you need to understand that trust is broken in seconds and rebuilt in hours and days and months and years.
Yeah, that's so important.
The consistency of, even if they're not coming around quickly, you are going to keep with that plan, and you are going to do your stakeholder check-in and say, is this still the way? How is it going? Right. So we got a little sidetracked with that, but the point that I wanted to make,
it's good. I told you we could go wherever we wanted to go with the episode, so we're good.
And we tend to do that. But what I want you to think about is really think about what your values are. I would actually poll your team and say, what do you throw away the mouse pad first.
Yeah, start over. Right? Yeah.
The way in which we work right now and what you get from me is what I think is important in based on what I'm modeling. What would you say our top 3 to 5 values are? And taking risks and taking initiative and being willing to fail sounds like one of the things that should be on your list.
Well, I'm definitely gonna add it. So as we get ready to wrap up the show, first of all, thank you for taking the time today. What are some action steps? Or I know behind you've got the connected advantage, you've got the 11 laws of likability, and the other 2 titles that I can't read right off the screen, but I know them because we worked with you on them. So what action steps would you leave our listeners? So obviously your website's been on the screen the whole time. They can check you out at Michelle. If you're listening to this on a podcast, MichelleTillisLederman.com, or you can check out executiveessentials.org if you're just listening. We do have the show. It is Wednesdays, just like today, 11 a.m. Central. We're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. But what are some takeaways that you would leave somebody with that want to know more? And this isn't okay, pitch something, but I'm curious, like where, if they want to learn more, or what's the next step that they should take? Obviously they can bring either one of us in for their keynote presentation or training, but what specifically would you like to leave the listeners with?
Well, what I would say is if there was something in here that resonated for you, there are ways that you can do this on your own. And there's ways that you can bring people in to do it in a facilitated way. I will share with you that one of the reasons that I am brought in so often is because they need that outside perspective, that outside voice. You just had that experience right here. You did this whole exercise with an outside person, and I'm listening to you and I'm like, oh, here's your value.
Right. You were able to see it so much quicker.
Somebody always says you cannot see the label from inside the jar. And that's why people like us are being brought in. We can see things more clearly than you can see from the inside. And so be curious. That's what I want to say is be curious. And when you have curiosity, you're going to ask questions of others and you can ask questions of your people and you're going to bring in knowledge. And then, you know what, if you want to take something home with you, take acceptable differences home. It's changed my life with the dishwasher.
Yeah, I'm definitely do that. Well, with that, thank you so much for being here today. This has been Ford Saeks and Michelle Tillis Lederman talking about how do you retain, engage, and we went on some tangents and learned about some other things. Anyway, thanks so much for being here today, Michelle.
Thanks for having me on, Ford.